Hi guys, what's going on, and welcome back to another episode of Total War Arena. So we have some elephants for you today. I have been thinking about getting these guys for a while, and I've just got back from holiday and thought, sod it, let's have a go with these tier 5 premium elephants. So I guess elephants are considered probably one of the most controversial additions to the game. A lot of people have been looking forward to them, and they are, well, from a looks point of view, absolutely epic. I mean, look at it. It looks so badass, particularly with like the war paint and sort of the crate on the back with the people with the javelins in. I mean, they are utterly awesome. But they are rather powerful at times, and they're quite fast, and they've got a lot of health. They've got like about 45,000 health per elephant, compared to, say, an equivalent tier 5 unit which might have up to, say, 20,000. And they are got really thick, tough skin, so it makes it hard for some of the sword infantry and stuff to cut into them. And because of their weight and sort of force, they can just drive their way through the enemy formations. So they have sort of been quite frowned upon in terms of they've been very hard to stop. They are quite easily countable by things like artillery, particularly the Roman light artillery, things like the scorpions and stuff. That's quite effective against them. And javelins also are particularly effective against them, because whenever these elephants get hit by missile units, then they take a speed penalty, which stacks. So if they continue to get shot at by archers, they slow down because the elephant doesn't want to walk into a barrage of arrow fire. So that's one good way of countering them. But let's take a quick look at the stats. Obviously, these are a premium unit here at tier 5. I've got the, well, I will very soon have the tier 6 African war elephant. It's the tech tree version, so we'll be having a look at that in another video soon. But for this one, it doesn't actually have any extra equipment to change because it's a premium unit, so it comes fully upgraded as it is. Statistics-wise, it looks very strong from the offset. So it has aggression, is obviously very high, really good charge impact, impact damage, and its melee attack and melee weapon damage are both pretty high. It's pretty hard to determine exactly how this sort of implements itself, given that it's a single unit. So it might have the same melee weapon damage and attack as, say, an infantry unit, which is obviously refers to the sort of sword skill of the individual soldiers. So how that implements, I'm not sure. Defense is obviously a bit more obvious, as well as survivability. Really heavy body armor, 220, that's very high. And that comes down to the fact, I guess, trying to stick a sword through an elephant's leg is probably not that easy. But in turn, that means that units with low weapon penetration damage struggle to really do any damage against elephants. So that's probably things like, well, it's like things like slingers struggle to do any damage to them, as well as things like the sword infantry, which only have sort of around 20 weapon penetration damage. They struggle to rack up any serious damage against these elephants. Now, mobility wise, you know, acceleration, deceleration, turn speed and all that are pretty slow. Nothing special there, but the movement speed is pretty good. Base 3.8. I'm running these with the imported apples consumable, which gives plus 7% movement speed. So I'm getting a base of 4.1, which is pretty quick considering Hannibal's forced march ability gives a plus 19% movement speed bonus. So these guys will run around at sort of 4.8 once on the battlefield. You know, and if they hit a road, then that would be 5. So they can really catch most infantry units in the game, which is another reason why they're kind of a little bit overpowered, because even some of the faster infantry units can't even run away from these guys, who can just continue to chase them down. So abilities wise, obviously the main one being Stomp. So this basically elephant stomps, but it causes knockdown on all nearby units. So the knockdown is on friendly and enemy units, but only the damage is on enemies. So you can't cause any friendly fire, but you will cause friendly knockdown. Raw, largely irrelevant ability, just minus 13 morale. Not normally enough to make any difference, but occasionally can be useful to get an enemy unit to rout. And then the rest of the stuff is things like trample movement. As they walk around, if someone stands under an elephant's foot as it walks over them, it kills them. Phalanx, knockback, not affecting, and immune to flank. So they very rarely rout these guys. They're basically unroutable from a morale point of view. They get a huge range of consumables to pick from, doing various things. I won't go through all of them now because I realise I'm talking a lot already and we probably want to get straight into a battle. But I'm running the imported wild apples. And particularly as a premium unit, you're going to make a good profit with it anyway, so always run with a consumable on the premiums. So let's hop into a replay and see how we got on with these elephants. So you join me on the Battle of Salernum. So I've loaded in with my 3 elephants, all in nice little neat formation there. Looking pretty badass. I think one of the best looking units in the game, particularly with these premium units. I think it's based on a real-life skeleton of one of Hannibal's elephants. That's why it's got the missing tusk. Although I probably should have looked into the history of it a bit more before I started recording this video. But let's hop into let's get this battle started. So we'll just have a fast forward. From initially, I immediately get toggled Forced March, which you'll see pops my speed up straight up to 4.81 over this fairly favourable, just soft terrain. Or probably not even soft terrain, medium terrain. And I head into the long grass. I'm just pushing up, trying to see what we can see. You can be fairly aggressive with the elements because they are quite strong. You're a pretty dominant unit in the battlefield. There's not a lot that can touch you, so yeah, I tend to play them fairly aggressively. And I think that tends to favour them quite well. They're quite independent units that work well on their own. So as I push through here, I reach the edge of the grass and we get some spots on some enemy units. I've not really got a lot of support around me, but we have got some friendly Romans moving up, and there's some cavalry here, who actually, as we know, is quite a good player because he's got the immortal clan tag, reward tag for doing a lot of games in the closed beta, so he's probably a bit more of an experienced player. So I see these guys down here, and I think, right, well, let's go and get stuck into some of these. Barbarian infantry and a few dogs can't really cause any harm to the elephants. So I begin to move down and start to push into these. These guys, I think, realise their impending doom from the fact that they've got Romans at the front and some elephants coming in from the side, so they try to get away. Just a few things I'm just noticing now is that these elephants do clip out on the trees slightly, and so that can cause them to lose speed. You want to try and avoid that. But I push into these guys, into the back of these guys, start racking up some damage. They stop because they get the hit. I do a few stomps. You can see as I'm walking, the amount of damage I'm causing as I walk through these enemies. You know, we're 7,000-8,000 damage done for basically just not a lot. Over 10,000 damage there now. And I've currently taken no damage at all on any of my elephants. So that's just all free damage. So at this point, though, I realise I've possibly made a bit of a mistake. Or I spot the biggest danger to elephants, javelins. So these guys are coming for me. This guy is playing basically as an elephant killer class. I'd say specifically to try and catch and kill people like me playing these elephants. And rightly so, because these guys really are overpowered. So he starts to come over here and I notice. So if he starts to hit me with his javelins, then I will start to take the movement speed penalty. So it makes it quite hard for me to escape once I'm captured by javelins. So I immediately make sure Force March is activated and get these guys moving back out the way. This guy realises he's not going to catch me because once I'm on a road doing, this guy's probably doing around 5.05 meters a second, he's not going to catch me. So that was narrowly avoided. So I'm loitering around here, but I'm keeping a careful eye out for these javelins. I saw them walking back into the town, so I'm just trying to go the opposite way to them. We then get attacked by some war dogs. And you'll see, I mean, this is kind of the problem with the elephants, is look at these war dogs. They managed to achieve 57 damage. And look how much damage we're doing, hundreds. The unit is just decimated. And this is an equal tier war dog unit. And they're just doing everything. We take far more damage from our friendly slingers than we do from the enemy war dogs. They've just done nothing. They're all stunned from the stomp, and they're just dead, basically. So I kill the bulk of them, and then I decide, well, no point hanging around there. They're not any threat to me or anything. So I move up to take on these warriors and the dog handlers a bit further up here. So we get stuck in. Just send the units in. Hopefully we'll get a good example in a minute of the problem with Stomp on friendly knockdown. So you see I'm swiping out here doing some damage to the enemy. There's the Stomp. Can you see here? So I've just stomped with this middle elephant. And we've knocked down quite a few enemy units, but we've actually knocked down far more of our own Macedonian spearmen. Now while it hasn't caused them any damage in terms of friendly fire from the Stomp, where the Stomp does damage enemy units that are nearby, it does cause them knockdown, which can be probably quite annoying from the point of view of the other player, particularly as I've kind of knocked him into the fire a little bit as well, so he's probably taking some damage from that. So you have got to be careful, and there's one thing I've sort of not been that careful of this game, I've only sort of noticed it towards the end, is that Stomp does cause friendly damage. So you can see we just assisted in basically the decimation of those enemy units there. So I then just pulled back a little bit just to sort of see what's going on. There's sort of a mass of enemies just sort of appeared out of nowhere, and I felt a bit threatened, so I pulled back a bit. I then moved down to help these slingers, because I wanted these slingers to deal with the javelin men who I saw further over here. So I take on these enemy war dogs, because I know I can kill them without problem. At this point, actually, doing a stomp to knock down friendly archer units that are in trouble is actually a good thing, because once a unit is knocked down, it doesn't actually receive combat damage until it stands back up again. That's why when a cavalry charges into an enemy unit, they don't actually then start doing melee damage until all the archers stand back up again. So I actually protected them for a while by doing that knockdown. Fortunately, they get stuck in by a unit of mounted warband, which starts to do quite a lot of damage to them, so these slingers don't fare all that well. But we're basically killing off this dog unit without any damage. But I noticed there is a pike phalanx coming in. So while I've got this unit gauge, and I have got Ad Portus activated, which is giving them the massive increased melee damage, I try and force this elephant round this gap to try and get behind these unit of pikemen. Which I do, and I only take a couple of thousand damage. And as I say, with a 47,000 damage, I can afford that. And I start to rack up some damage on these pikes. You've got to remember, obviously, because you've got double the amount of health of everything, you can take double the amount of damage you give before you're losing. So the amount of damage I'm doing here is far outclassing the amount of damage I'm taking. I then try and bully my way with the rest of the elephants into this pike unit, but I don't really get very far. I realise that they're there playing quite well, they're keeping their formation, pulling back, and I decide, sod that for a game, I don't want to get involved in that. I then am a bit slow here in noticing the base capture warning, which is really poor on my part. I can only apologise for that, that was just not me not paying attention. But then, any second now, I realise what I've done. And immediately get Force March activated to get my speed back up and start heading back towards base, which is being threatened by 3 units of tier 6 legionaries, Roman infantry, 3 very powerful units which are doing quite a lot of damage to what remains, and the only defender is basically some disconnected players and a few mounted warband. But this is again, the elephants aren't really lacking in any department because they actually have quite a lot of speed. So I'm coming back 4.8, faster than almost any infantry unit you're going to encounter in the game, so I'm actually flying back to base pretty quickly. You can see the amount of speed I'm doing. If I was a Roman, say armoured legionaries equivalent, or principes, I'll be still back here, further back along the road, so it took me quite a long time to get there. So these guys fly along, we can have a quick fast forward, I'm waiting for these guys to charge back along the road. Thankfully quite a few friendly teammates come up, so I'm not really desperately required for base defence, but it seemed like a good opportunity to get stuck into some tier 6 units. So I split my elephants here, I send one to this unit in formed combat to rear flank him, and I send these two right into the melee to get stuck in. This guy comes in, goes in straight with a stomp, massive amount of knockdown, knocks them all down, all the rear units, then starts to move into them and starts jabbing them and stamping on them and all sorts of other mean things that elephants do. So as you can see, the elephants just aren't really taking any damage. I've been in 3 or 4 very thick melee fights now, and it just doesn't do anything to them really. Because these swords aren't really capable of doing any significant damage to the elephants. Once they enter vengeance mode, the Roman infantry, you do have to be a little bit careful. They can rack up some damage kind of quickly. And the same is true with the enemy Carthaginian infantry. Once they're in the second phase of their Ad Portus, can be quite effective. But really, I mean, you can look at this, I'm just at 8,000 damage, just racking up damage nice and easily here for not really doing a lot. As you can see, our morale hasn't dropped at all through any of these. One quick tip of something I noticed is that with elephants, for some reason, compared to the infantry, the Force March doesn't toggle off quite the same as it does with the infantry. So that can often stay on, so you've got to try and keep an eye on that, because you do get things like the missile block chance lower when being shot at by archers, so you need to keep an eye out for that if you're starting to get engaged. But for the large part, we just crush these Roman infantry without any trouble, and the base is safe. And we've basically tipped the battle sufficiently in our favour that we can't lose now. And then again, obviously the very good benefit of elephants, turn around, smack back on Force March straight away, and here we go, back off at good speed, straight back along the road. Because we've got some pikes down here, and shortly we should discover some Roman infantry hidden down here. So we'll just hit back into fast forward as we're moving again. But you can see, compared to the other infantry, we are able to move a lot quicker. We're able to move at the same speed look as these dog handlers, which are the really fast barbarian infantry unit. Particularly along the road here, we're getting over 5 meters a second. Just as a note, oops, I had to avoid these caltraps. They are friendly, but I wasn't sure if they would cause damage to my elephants as well or slow them down. I avoid these pikes. I saw no real benefit to engaging a couple of Theban pikemen, as they're probably one of the more effective infantry units against elephants. But then these two guys, 2 units of equivalent tier Principes, one in almost full health, one in sort of half health, and they just, you know, just don't stand a chance. Straight in with a stomp, half of them are not down, thousands of damage just being racked up straight away. Look at all that. I mean, it's just ridiculously effective. And you can see what damage we've taken. What, like 1,000? But you got to remember, I've got 47,000 starting health. So, and as a percentage, you know, all my units are at 73, 82, 80, 78. So they've still got lots of health. And the amount of damage we're doing to these units, which only start off with 24,000, is just pretty extreme. And we start to rack up a lot of points here. You see we're getting quite a lot of aggression points, as well as support points, because we're helping units in a fight. So it's really just a case of we finish off these Romans, and that is it. We win the battle. So I mean, that's what I was just trying to demonstrate, how effective these elephants can be, particularly as they tend to last the whole game. They're always there. They're really hard to kill. But as an elephant player, you need to be watching out for javelins and particularly light artillery. You also want to watch out for things like caltraps, which can be deployed by the javelin men because they'll slow you down. And be aware that when you start to get shot at by missile units, your abilities, your ability to go fast will slow down, because when you get shot, you start to lose movement speed. And then if you're opposing elephants as an infantry player, you know, if you're playing Roman infantry, barbarian infantry, and really Carthaginian infantry, I would try and keep out of the way. Pikemen are quite effective against them if you can sort of hold your formation together and get them so you're still hitting them with the pikes. But you have to be careful, because the elephants can sort of just take a little bit of damage and charge through your lines. You know, as I say, they don't get that pike knockback that most units do, so it's kind of harder to keep them at bay, and that's kind of easy for the elephants to force their way through. But javelins are very effective against them, as well as the light artillery, so if you want to try and take on elephants, that's what I recommend. And if you're playing as just a normal sword infantry player, I'd try and keep out of the way where possible, because they will just stomp right through you. So we'll be having a look at the tier 6 elephants very shortly in the next couple of days. So thanks for watching. Any questions or thoughts about the elephants? Do you think they're overpowered, sort of a bit like I do? Or do you think that they work quite well? What do you think? Let me know in the comments down below. Thanks for watching, guys, and I shall see you all on the next episode.